Kentaro Miura was considered one of the greatest mangaka to ever live, starting to create his own manga around roughly at the age of 10. His work has inspired the likes of Hideaki Anno, Hidetaka Miyazaki, Tetsuya Nomura, Makoto Yukimura, and even the Russo brothers. And this is all thanks to one manga that essentially kickstarted a whole trend of dark fantasy media, which is none other than Berserk. Berserk is centered on a mercenary named Guts, known for carrying a ridiculously large sword in battle and is dubbed the Black Swordsman, as a nod to how deadly of a skilled warrior he is in combat. The manga is widely known for its superb, complex, and incredibly detailed art style that breathes so much life into the world it's depicting. You truly feel the magic and terror of Berserk when you read it, as it's loaded with striking imagery. In 1997, the manga would receive an anime adaptation from Oriental Light and Magic, directed by Naohito Takahashi. And depending on where you go, Yasuhiro Imagawa is credited as either a writer or a script supervisor, when in reality he had next to no involvement in the anime, and it still turned out to be a masterpiece. This anime adaptation would cover most of the material from the Golden Age arc to the Eclipse arc, but still maintains the key moments and plot beats, and makes for a very cohesive 25-episode story. And just to get this out of the way, since it's literally the first thing you see, the opening monologue is very chilling and has this entrancing, foreboding atmosphere about it.
At least it is true that man has no control, even over his own will.
Then the actual opening theme plays.
So put your glasses on, nothing will be wrong. There's no brain, there's no fame, it's up to you.
I know it's been memed on to death, but Tell Me Why by Pen Pals is actually a pretty fun and enjoyable song. It's just that it's so jarring that it's attached to such a dark and violent property such as Berserk. We then see an introduction to Guts from the Black Swordsman arc, and basically, don't f*** with Guts, because he will wreck your shit. Should probably mention that the manga literally opens with him having sex with a woman who turns out to be a monster, in reference to Conan the Barbarian. Yeah, there's a decent amount of stuff they cut out for the anime. After this, we go back to the days when Guts was just a lone wanderer, until he comes across a long, white-haired knight named Griffith, who leads the Band of the Hawk. Griffith forces Guts into submission after a pretty nasty fight and claims Guts as one of his soldiers. We're also introduced to the other well-known members of the Band of the Hawk, like the tenacious and all-business Kasuka, the friendly and easygoing Judo, the more cynical and hot-headed Corcus, as well as the strong and noble Pippin. They're all led by Griffith, who is not only proven to be a brilliant strategist, but there is something off about him, mainly how he goes about treating his comrades like Guts, or what his true ambitions are. Each of the main central characters, being Guts, Kasuka, and Griffith, are all driven by something, whether it's a strong will to live, to be accepted, or to fulfill a dream of becoming a ruler of a kingdom. The way Kentaro Miura writes his characters is very grounded to where they almost feel like real people. Every character has experienced some form of trauma that reminds the reader of just how terrible the world can be at times. Especially Guts, who was born from his dead mother and was raised by a mercenary named Gambino, who constantly abused him, plus other unspeakable and depressing things. But aside from the characters, Berserk is filled with tons of action, tons of drama, and sometimes both at the same time, and on top of it, while the animation, considering that it has to replicate this, it actually does a pretty phenomenal job, not conveying just the intention and purpose of Miura's art, but the raw power and turmoil that comes with it too. One scene that always comes to mind is the transformation scene with Nosferatu Zod. I mean, seriously, huge props to the animation team here. And I have to mention the soundtrack by Susumuhirosawa. In some tracks it's very calming, like Guts, enchanting and mysterious, like Bailet, dark and energetic, like Ghosts, and just absolutely raw like Forces. It's a very unique soundtrack that has so much variety, meaning it's able to fit within any scenario so well. All that combined, Berserk is a very well executed character-driven story with all sorts of strange dark twists and turns that just keeps you invested in the action. Especially as Guts is putting his body through hell and pushing his limits to perform what are essentially superhuman feats, like battling 100 soldiers at the same time and killing them all single-handedly. Plus, his bond with Casca as they look out for one another is very heartwarming and shows a much more human side to these characters that you hardly ever see in stuff like this these days. And of course, I cannot talk about the 1997 Berserk anime without mentioning its horrifying and nightmarish conclusion. So if you wish to save yourself, please skip to the time code on the screen. I'll give you about 5 seconds. Don't say I didn't warn ya. As the story of Berserk progresses, we see Griffith become even more strange and not just a good human being all around. It's revealed that Griffith was given this strange egg-shaped palette with a disfigured face on it and was told that with it, he could get his own kingdom. In the later parts of Berserk, Griffith is captured and tortured until he's almost completely devoid of all life and is eventually rescued by the Band of the Hawk. However, after he's rescued, Griffith suddenly strays from his comrades, and as Guts desperately tries to get him back, Griffith initiates the Eclipse. Suddenly, the Band of the Hawk is surrounded by a hellish landscape of disturbing red faces as demonic entities known as the God Hand are summoned. And it is here when the Band of the Hawk meet their unfortunate demise, as Griffith sacrifices his former allies to achieve the power of a god. Words cannot describe how horrifying and demented this ending is. Some even consider it to be the darkest anime ending of all time. But what makes it even more interesting and unsettling is the very concept of the eclipse. Christian astronomers believe that Jesus Christ was born during an eclipse and died during one as well. And the fact that an eclipse is used as a setting for the tragic deaths of many to bring new life to a now godlike demonic entity just makes it even more disturbing. There's a lot of information I'm intentionally going to leave out due to its very upsetting and sensitive matter, so that's all I'm gonna say about the ending. No matter how you look at it, Berserk is a masterpiece. I cannot give this anime adaptation enough praise for getting so many things right, as well as its manga for simply just being a major cornerstone in the industry. It's also worth mentioning that there is a trilogy of animated films known as the Berserk Golden Age trilogy. While it does include moments that weren't present in the 1997 anime, like the Skull Knight, who's really cool by the way, it doesn't cover as much groundwork, but I guess makes for a neat alternative if you're not a fan of classic animation. There's also the 2016 anime that continues where both the 1997 anime and the movie trilogy leave off, but I couldn't make it past the first 2 episodes. I couldn't stand the animation, which has garnered tons of infamy. I just played the video game instead. But before I close this video off, I want to remind you all why Berserk is important to many people, including myself. It's a series all about perseverance. No matter how awful the world can become, even to where it seems it's crumbling down upon you and all you can do is suffer, just know it's not the end of it. You still have the strength to push through. And that was the message Kentaro Miura was conveying in Berserk. A message so powerful that it makes characters like Guts even more believable. With this mindset, we can become just like Guts. Guts isn't all of us. We may not be badass giant sword-wielding monster killers, but we all have a purpose in life. There is a purpose to our suffering, and it's up to us to grow out of it and become the best we can be, as life is truly worth living. As for the current state of Berserk, since Kentaro Miura has passed away, it seems his pupils are willing to continue the story until completion for him. And all I have to say is that we believe in you, and we all wish you the best of luck. Also want to give a very special shout out to my Patreon supporters, including Big O. Thank y'all very much, and I'll see y'all next time.